explain how the central nervous system can be affected by various substances. The first thing we could do is explore with the clients around what are the three main drug categories: depressants, stimulants, and hallucinogens. Let's take a look at the depressants first. So first, if we're assuming that our central nervous system is kind of at a regular state, demonstrated by the Slinky being at this height, and we put in a depressant such as alcohol, benzodiazepines like lorazepam or clonazepam. Then we have our opiates, all the painkillers, fentanyl patch, Demerol, morphine, Percocet, T3s. So if we're at a regular state and we put on a depressant, let's say alcohol, every bit of alcohol we put in finds a way to slow down our system. So we can signify this as like 1 drink, 2 drink, 3 drink, 4 drink, and so on. And everything in our body starts to slow down. Our heart is beating slower, our respiratory system is going slower, our brain waves are going slower. We can see our muscle coordination deteriorating and going slower. And so over time, everything is slowing down with the depressants, alcohol, opiates, and the benzodiazepines. And then what happens is when our bodies, we stop using and our bodies say, okay, let's go back to normal, what happens is our body overshoots normal. And now we have this agitation and restlessness that we often see with people who are in alcohol, benzodiazepine, and opiate withdrawal. So we might be throwing up, shaky hands, not being able to sleep well, because we're over agitated. And then depending on how much substances we use, how well we can metabolize the substance, it may take hours, it may take days for us to get back to our regular state. Now let's look at this in light of stimulants like cocaine or crystal meth. We're at a regular state and someone uses cocaine and everything goes up. Their heart rate is going up, their breathing is faster, they're often erratic in their emotions. They sometimes will have a grandiose sense of themselves, like I can outrun that train, I can jump off that bridge. And so everything is feeling up, but when they run out of their substance, so for example, their cocaine binge is over, their body says go back to normal, but in an attempt to get back to normal, it overshoots normal, and now we have people experiencing the crash. So often clients can relate to a caffeine crash in the middle of the afternoon, or maybe a nicotine crash when they feel like they have to go back out and have a cigarette. And for people who use stimulants, they'll also be able to relate to that crash. And then again, depending on how much they use, how well they can metabolize the substance, it will take hours to days for them to come back to normal, depending on the many variables, like their age, their weight, whether they're male or female, how long they've been using, tolerance, etc. And then there's our third category, hallucinogens, like acid, mushrooms, PCP. We also tuck cannabis in this category. Cannabis doesn't fall perfectly in hallucinogens. There's some stimulant properties to cannabis, there's some depressant qualities, but also some hallucinogen categories. So if a client were to use hallucinogens, everything kind of goes wonky or distorted for 20, 30, 40 minutes, and then it wears off, and clients aren't experiencing the same physical withdrawal of the crash or physical overstimulation. Its majority of it is more that psychological withdrawal where they're being drawn back to use the substance. So when you look at this through a lens of concurrent disorders, and you think about clients who maybe were feeling anxious, they weren't feeling like this before they started drinking, they were feeling like this, and they started drinking or using opiates or using benzos, and everything was slowing down, and their experience was like sweet relief. I finally got my anxiety under control. But what happens is when the substances run out, their body says go back to normal, it overshoots normal, so they're not just where they were before they started using it, anxious, but now they're anxious plus, because now they have to manage the withdrawal symptoms, which is more agitation and restlessness. And often we see clients being drawn back to using depressants again as a way to slow this down again because it becomes unbearable. And thus we see the cycle of people going back to using. Or maybe it's the person who was feeling really depressed. They weren't here, they were actually here feeling depressed, and they used cocaine for the first time, and they're like, oh, it's my miracle, it's what I've always been looking for. Often people who use stimulants will say, I finally felt normal. And so here they are feeling high on life again, energetic, vibrant. But when they stop using, not only do they go back to how low they felt originally within their depression, but now they got to deal with the crash of the withdrawal. And you can see why people return again to using substances as a way to try to alleviate these unpleasant states that they're in. And then we think about hallucinogens. We know that a lot of our clients who've been diagnosed with concerns around psychosis use hallucinogens. And if you think about maybe perhaps with psychosis, they're experiencing judgments, delusions, some negative thought patterns, and they can use a hallucinogen and have a break from that judgment and delusions for a while and that negativity. And then it wears off. It would make sense why that client may feel like they need to go back and use again as a way to come out of that negative mood state and have a break. So the Slinky can be used as a way to demonstrate for the client the positive effects that sometimes a client may experience when using substances. And it also includes what happens in withdrawal and that boomerang effect. This may be able to help clients have more of a broader understanding of how their mental health symptoms are being affected by using and also through withdrawal.